Te mihi ki te atua, tēnā koe. I firstly acknowledge the Lord. E ngā iwi, te tangata whenua, mana whenua, tēnā koutou. I acknowledge the people of this land. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Greetings to you all. Talofa lava and warm greetings from Samoa, the heart of Polynesia. You can see that I'm heavily wrapped up. I'm wearing a puletasi like my cousin who just introduced me. And she has also given half of my presentation. So it would make my job easier this morning. I would just summarize, briefly summarize what she's already given, but that's great. She's given the background of the Alcohol and Drugs Court in Samoa, as you can see. Yesterday was quite an eye-opener for me, as Luaman Vau touched upon it. This area is beyond or outside the jurisdiction of the courts. So listening in to a presentation yesterday about addictions, and all of you here, or most of you here who work in addressing addictions and related issues to addictions was quite an eye-opener for me, because it's not my field. And I don't have training or background in the areas that we are discussing. So to all of you who work in the field, I applaud what you do. Successfully overcoming one's addiction or learning to control his or her drinking and drug taking is about learning to conquer his or her impulses. Thus the saying, he who conquers his impulses is greater than he who conquers the fortress. This saying is used by the Samoan Alcohol Drugs Court as a challenge that we issue to our participants in the court when they are undergoing the programs. I would first give a brief background on Samoa's Alcohol Drugs Court that Luaman Vau had already given. I will then show how our Samoan culture promotes our sense of belonging and is a means by which we draw upon for support and strength. To give context to my presentation, it takes a village to raise a child. As you can see, when I walk up here and being given a lei, that's such a Pacific thing to do. So you can take, and I thank my Samoan people for doing this and for giving me the lei, and to the chair of DEPANS for inviting me. Thank you to DEPANS for the invitation. In doing this, it goes to show that you can take the man or the boy out of the village, but you can never take the village out of the boy, can you? How did the ADC come about? As Wendy said, for years, our Chief Justice and the Supreme Court judges have noticed that despite issuing or imposing sentences of custodial sentence and imprisonment, that haven't solved the problem or reduced the risk of reoffending. Instead, there has been an alarming rate or increase in offenses committed under the influence of alcohol or drugs. If you can see, those percentage led to the establishment of the Samoa Alcohol and Drugs Court in 2016. That's the eligibility criteria for referral to the Alcohol Drugs Court. The Samoa Alcohol and Drugs Court is a post-guilty plea, pre-sentence intervention available to those offenders whose offending is driven by serious abuse of or dependence on alcohol and drugs. The aims of the court include identifying the extent of the alcohol or drug problem. That's why we do have an ADC clinician. Identifying the appropriate treatment or intervention to address the problem, requiring the offender to complete such intervention, identifying any other likely drivers of criminal behaviors, and working with the offender's family, church, and village throughout the ADC program to strengthen these ties and to enlist appropriate support. That's what we call our ADC team, which consists of a judge, a prosecutor, 2 ADC lawyers to represent the participants, an ADC clinician, a case manager, a court coordinator, and a probation officer to the ADC. Just to give, because the court is fairly new, and we've only just started in 2016, that's the sort of data that we've got. Everything is about evidence-based, isn't it? So we've been keeping the data since we've started. If you look at the 29th of those cases that were mentioned with alcohol underlying, alcohol and or drugs offending, refer for screening from that is 8, refer for full assessment is 5. So that gives you an idea of the process that one has to go through. And from the assessment, the clinician will make the recommendation whether to refer for full treatment available under the ADC Court or not. So the numbers have really increased. The numbers that when we started, we had 16 people going through the alcohol drugs court, but as of to date, from January this year to July, 35 so far. So the numbers are increasing. And we expect the numbers to keep on increasing as we go into the future. The alcohol drugs court in Samoa is a 3-year pilot, and we're into our 2nd year now. What we do in the ADC is not responding to the symptoms of the behavior, the burglary or the assault. The ADC addresses the causes of the offender's behavior. That is what is driving their behavior to offend, which is usually why we're looking at alcohol and or drugs, which is mainly, when I'm talking about drugs, it's mainly marijuana. Therefore, the main purpose of the Samoan ADC is to provide treatment to alcohol and drug offenders to reduce the risk of reoffending. It is about harm reduction. Less reoffending means safer communities. We believe that safer communities is not just the responsibility of the courts or the police, but the community as a whole. It is everyone's business. And this was the common thread or the clear message from the presentations yesterday. It's about relationships and community. The eloquent Dr. Evans spoke about getting the people back into the community, making them part of the community, and sustaining those people in the community. Jeanette Grace, in her presentation, spoke about tikanga, providing order and peace to the Maori society. The Samoan society is about family, culture, and religion. That's family, culture, religion. It's about we as a community and not I as an individual. In engaging the villages, the Alcohol Drugs Court carried out a community awareness programs out in the villages. We actually went out to the villages, and we've actually basically covered. Samoa consists of 2 islands. Now, our Samoa Tourism Authority should pay me for saying this. It consists of 2 islands, the main islands Hawaii and Upolu, where the capital is. So basically, Upolu is, we've covered that with community awareness programs on alcohol and drugs court, and to gauge the support of the community, because if we don't have the resources that you in New Zealand have, and the funding that's available to you in New Zealand have, we go back to our community for support. There was a presentation also, the presentation by Jeanette Grace. I quite liked the title of that presentation. Minding my business is not in my DNA. That is so true of the Samoan people as well. If you think your business is yours alone in Samoa, living in Samoa, well, you have to go live in La La Land and not in Samoa. That way your business is truly yours and not everyone. You can see that's a village setting in Samoa. Now you see what I mean? Your business cannot be your business alone. Look at how the houses are closely situated to each other. No walls, nothing. The community. That's what threads the community in Samoa. Some of you may consider that as being nosy, but us Samoans see it as being concerned. Really. Sometimes too overly concerned, but concerned. It is this sense of community, of everyone looking after each other by knowing everything that goes on in the village, including the people, that the Samoan ADC taps into. The village knows everything about you and your family. It is the village lore that helps or shapes one's life. Each village have rules that the people must abide by. For example, curfew times, which is usually in the evening. When you have curfew times, each village have got curfew times, no one is supposed to be outside or walking outside, or any cars to turn into any houses. Everyone has to be inside praying. And we use that curfew time also for evening prayers. There is also church attendance. Some villages really impose, or not impose, that's not the right word, that everyone must attend church on Sundays. And the only person to stay back home are the ones that are doing the cooking for big feed after the Sunday church. Alcohol bans, some villages do impose alcohol bans. Narcotics, marijuana, it's a complete no-no. And penalties are imposed by the village if such rules are not adhered to. It is with this background that we, in the Alcohol Drugs Court in Samoa, believe that it is the village that should be drawn back in to assist the court to monitor those of their own that grew up and nurtured by the village, but somehow, somewhere, down in the line, this child or adults that have grown to has lost his way or her way and ended up on the wrong side of the law. The ADC treatment programs are community-based. It is therefore important to have the community involved to promote a holistic view of care and to influence changes. The ADC works collaboratively with the community through the involvement of community justice supervisors. This community justice supervisor can be village mayors, family matais, family chiefs, village women representatives, church ministers, and significant others to support and monitor the ADC participants out in the community. Community justice supervisors is our Samoan version to detox, because we don't have resources, so we use them as detox, in a sense, or the Samoan version to monitoring anklets that you have here in New Zealand or elsewhere, also because we don't have the resources for those things. These people are respected and listened to in the communities. They become the ears and the eyes of the ADC in the community. Any issues arising out in the villages with the participants, for example, breach of bail conditions of by the participants, CJS reports to the treatment team, who provides a report to the court. To gauge the support of the family, the ADC requires a family group conference. The purpose of the family group conference is to provide the Alcohol Drugs Court with as much background information as possible to inform the family about the ADC and what it would mean for the offender or the participant, and to elicit the family support for the work of the court. As soon as the offenders are referred to the ADC, and before the ADC accepts any of them, a family group conference must be carried out. The FGC is conducted at the participant's family environment in the village and must be attended by the participant and family members. The FGC is also used to vet the family environment of the participant. It is crucial that the participant lives in a good and safe environment where there won't be any temptation to use alcohol and other drugs while on the program. From FGC, we identify some of the issues that need addressing before the offender is accepted. We find in some situations that the family or families don't want to accept their person or the offender back to reside with them. Now, that is quite surprising with me as a Samoan, and I said that Samoans, the whole Samoan is about family. So when issues like that are identified from a family group conference, that the family actually telling the team that they don't want this member of their family, son, a relative, or an uncle back to reside with them, it's quite a surprising thing with me. So what the court, because the reasons is some of the families have washed their hands off their own, saying that they, the offenders, have caused them too much pain, shame, and financial stress by way of village penalties. In most cases, we've found that where the family is strong and stable, the offender or participant of the ADC will easily be accepted into the ADC, and these participants easily adapt to the programs and do not reoffend or lapse any of their programs while they're in ADC. But those who are not accepted by their families or do not have, their families are not of the strong unit, they struggle through the ADC programs from remaining abstinent from alcohol and or drugs. And they are always lapsing and are most likely exited from the ADC and referred back to the general jurisdiction of the Supreme Court for sentencing. Where the court has exhausted all avenues in finding a suitable environment or family for the offender to live, it will have no other option but to decline the offender and refer him back to the general criminal jurisdiction to be sentenced. You can see that I've put on there what the two phases of the programs, which are basically community-based, that the participants undergo in the alcohol drugs court in Samoa. Phase 1, which is 8 weeks, it's mainly psychoeducational programs for the offender or the participant to know that it's the link of his alcohol consumption to the problems he's facing and to his course of offending. The 12 weeks, or the phase 2 one, it's mainly intensive monitoring of one-on-one, concentrating on relapsing, those issues covered in the. In concluding my presentation, we do not have issues of reintegration as the participants of alcohol drugs court are released out to their families and communities and to attend their programs judicially monitored by the court. ADC is about harm reduction. Its programs are community-based and it has a ripple effect. If the causes driving the offender's behavior is addressed and managed, the rate of reoffending should decrease. This would mean less violence upon women and children within a family. This would also have a positive impact on the health services, not to mention the health benefits to the offender or the participant of the alcohol drugs court. Most importantly, is less offending means safer communities or villages, and it is important to work with villages through community justice supervisors. If villages are safe, Samoa is safe. Thank you.